Welcome back. This is lesson number 7 of learning Biblical Hebrew. Put the number 7 up there. Alright, so now we're going to be focusing upon this sentence as we grow and learn and progress in this book. Okay? By now, you have about one more lesson by which your first set of 50 vocabulary words have predominantly need to be memorized. Because in order to get to the next set of lessons, which is 9, we're going to have to go from 51 all the way up to 100. So we have to know the other set, which is going to be your first set of 100 vocabulary words you're going to have to memorize with regard to these lessons. So let's break down this sentence here and let's work forward through it. Vayiten, and he gave Abraham et kol al asher lo, that belonged to him, le'itzach, to Itzach. Right? So now we're going to start with our verb. We know the vav here is the vav conversive. The vav conversive is member identified by the bitach with the dagesh in the root letter. Okay? So that gives me basically yud, tav, and nun. Now, knowing that the yud here is the pronoun, I have to wipe that away because I know that here the pronoun is only used for the third person masculine singular form, right? So all I have left is tav and nun. So what root have I missing here? Remember, we have rules of how to find roots. Okay? Because I have 2 root letters, let's break down that rule of roots so we can utilize them to remember how to find roots. One of them is the fact that we said that if we have a root missing with 2, the first thing we're going to do is try to put a nun in the first position. And we're going to ask to see if this root fits the context of what we're saying here. The next we're going to do is put the tav and the vav in the middle position. And this is the second one. The next thing we can do too is put the yud in the second position, by which this utilize this. And then, of course, we're going to put the tav, the nun, and the hey being the last position. And of course, lastly, we're going to put tav, nun, and nun sofit, by which here we're going to double the last root letters. This is how we can, by breaking out this rule of searching for the missing root, we can ask the question of what is the possible root. Okay? This is a process of elimination. So when I'm going through my dictionary, I'm looking for the vav in the middle, the yud in the middle, the he at the end, the doubling of the root letter. So here we had tav and nun, so the nun is going to be doubled with another nun. We'll place that as the nun sofit. And then of course, in the beginning, adding the nun to the front. And as we go through this process of elimination, we're able to quickly find out what is the missing root. And of course, what is the answer? The answer is simply nun, tav, nun sofit. Alright? Nun, tav, nun sofit. Well, here's something important that we need to understand. What does this word mean? It means to give. Okay? However, in your book you're going to see it also means to set or put into position. So, what does giving have anything to do with setting and putting into position? The answer, it doesn't. So we need to look at this as these are two completely different roots. One means to put or set into position, and one means to give. And don't get confused and think that this root is the same thing as this one. Roots are very specific. When we're dealing with the issue of roots, whatever a root specifically means, it cannot mean something else. If it means something else, we're looking for a second root that looks exactly the same. And it doesn't have anything to do with the initial root. That's very important to understand about roots, okay? So here we have the issue, Vayiten, and here we know that the root here means give, alright? So we say, and he gave, right? Now let's look at the next word, Avraham. Avraham is our proper noun. If I see a proper noun in front of a verb, such as a narrative verb, this is the narrative verb form, remember we talked about that in one of our lessons, then what am I going to be thinking? Well, the first thing I'm going to ask the question is, does this noun agree with the subject verb pronoun? Okay? If it does, then I know that this pronoun is referring to Avraham. So instead of saying and he gave, I have to replace the he with the word Avraham. So now it's and Avraham gave, right? Because Avraham is the third person masculine singular proper noun, and it agrees with my third person masculine singular proper noun that's attached to my verb. Okay, there we go, plain and simple. Et. This is a beautiful word, and it means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Actually, there's no translational value for it. Why is this such a beautiful word? What's important about et? Et always is going to be used in front of definite, direct objects. Okay? So what do we call the et? Well, we call it the definite, direct object marker. Because what does it do? It points to definite, direct objects. Okay? It has no translational value. And it would be the same thing as if I was to say, for example, I ate the pizza. Notice the word et does not appear in English. Okay? Well, here it's the same way of thinking. The only difference is I have to use et in front of a direct object. So, Vayiten Avraham et kol, I'm saying, and Avraham gave all. I'm not going to be translating the word et. But I have to know that it's needed because it's used always in front of direct, definite, direct objects. Okay? So here we have Hal, okay, Kal, all. All is it's a noun that can refer to an entirety of something, the whole of something, the absolute everything of something, so all, okay? Asher. What is asher? This is called a relative pronoun. Relative pronouns are like the who, not the question who, like me. Me is who as the question. It's who as in like, who said unto him all of these things. That's what it's referring to, the relative pronoun. So if I said who said, I would say Asher Amar. Who said, Et kol hadevrim ha'eli, all of these things. All right? That said all of these things, okay? That is how you would say Asher Amar, that said, Kol hadevrim ha'eli, all of these things. So we have the possibility of who, that, and lastly, which. For example, as in Asher Natan, which gave et kol hadevrim ha'eli, all of these things. Okay, so here the relative pronoun is going to be questioned as to what's going to fit contextually, because it's easy to say something in Hebrew and to understand the context of what's going on because you already know the conversation, you're the one speaking. But when we're reading, we're having to investigate which one of these is going to fit into the category of what we're reading here. So here he says all, what? All who? No, that doesn't make sense because the next word is the word lo. What is lo? Lamed here is the word that means belong, or belonging, or belonging to, okay? So la means belonging to. It's only used in these kind of contexts as we're going to be seeing here. But understand that lamed has a lot of different special ways it can be used, and in this case it means belonging to. Now what's next to it, we have here a vav. What is this vav? Well, if you go to the the preposition chart that I have, look for the vav preposition chart and look for the lamed. The lamed is going to be having all of its pronoun attachments to it. So here we have next to it, we have a pronoun that's been attached to the lamed. And in this case, it's the third person masculine singular form, also known as he. In this case, he is going to be him. Okay? So we have to understand the difference between when we're going to say he versus him. Okay? Okay, so here, all that belong to him. Okay? Asher lo, which belonged to him. So what did he do? Let's start it over again. Vayiten, and he gave. Avraham, and Avraham gave. Et, points to the direct object. Kol, al, asher, which, lo, belonging to him. So all the things that belong to Avraham, he gave to who? La Yitzhak, to Yitzhak. So here, I want to focus on this one very much by itself. Alright? Why? Because I want to point out something very important. The word La'itzach is basically, we have a proper noun, and here we have a preposition. We have an inseparable preposition, which means a preposition here is being attached to my proper noun. And the separable preposition literally means, I'm just going to write it here, to. Okay? Now, you might sit here and say, okay, I got a question for you. According to the grammar by which we're learning here, and according to the preposition chart, I'm kind of confused. How can we have two versions of the word to? Alright? Here we have the word el, which means to, or can be translated unto. And here we have the lamed, which is attached to the proper noun, which can mean to or unto. And you also could say, but you also taught us this, that el is only used for verbs of speech and movement. And you said movement can refer to as like giving, reverment as taking, movement as walking, okay? Actions that have to do with physical movement, right? So why is the lamed used here? And that's because we have to know and understand that in the Torah, and in grammar, we have to remember that the lamed here is acting like the word el, but it's defective. What's defective? It means that instead of la, it should have been el, okay? And there's something that's lacking. It's a defective word. Defective words mean grammatical changes have taken place by which the author is wanting something to be understood. He's wanting to express something here important. Okay? And this expressing of what he wants to say is the implication of why he chose not to write El Itzach, but La Itzach. And this can only be explained when we get into the higher levels of interpreting and understanding grammar from the standpoint by which we're going to break apart and investigate these words to understand why did this grammatical form get chosen versus this one. So right now we're going to just understand and know that grammatically this is considered incorrect. But it was written on purpose. It was done on purpose for a reason. Whereas the correct version should have been this one. Here, this is the correct version. And we're going to find this happens quite often in the scriptures, where instead of the correct version used, the author chooses an incorrect version, where many scholars have failed to understand and see the importance of it, and make themselves think, well, there's just some kind of scribal error, and maybe this was just a happenstance. It's not. Okay, so now let's go back to looking at this thing. So we have here the preposition lamed is used in front of here to finish our statement. And we said that means to who? To Itzach. So Vayiten Avraham, and Avraham gave et, the direct object marker, kol asher, all that lo belonged to him, le'itzach, to Itzach. So here we know that we've broken down the verb. We followed how to find the missing part of the verb. We also can know that, I'll throw something out here too, if you ever see a chirik in the front of the actual pronoun, it's very common that the root missing is in the front of the verb. Just a little side note there. Alright? And we also know that we saw that Avraham, because it agreed with the subject pronoun here, that he was the subject of the verb. We have the word et, which is required in front of every noun that is definite when it's the definite direct object, because it's the definite direct object marker. So if we don't see et, and we see a definite direct object that's being mentioned, you have to say something is wrong. This is grammatically incorrect. Okay? Grammatically incorrect. Alright? And then we have to ask the questions, and this is why you really can't hold fast to English translations, okay? Because what you start finding is you have all of these things that are utilized in grammar, which is meaning to express different elements and ideas and pinpoints. But, when somebody just translates this whole statement here into an English translation of some sort, you've limited yourself now from being able to investigate what's happening with the text. What is the text trying to say? What's the text point? What is the meaning for all of the things that are brought up here? And that's why it's very important to understand that Hebrew is the only way that you're going to grow in your walk. You're going to grow in your understanding of the scriptures. It's the only way you're going to be able to know correctly what it is that the Bible is really saying. So I encourage you to continue your growth as you continue these lessons here. And just remember, as you go on in the rest of chapter 7, you're going to be challenged over the issues of questions of what is a noun construct, What does it look like? Can you identify these nouns? What category do they belong to? And if you've looked and watched all the videos that we've done so far, you should have a very strong ability to identify what you're going to be doing in the upcoming part of the lessons. I hope you enjoy this lesson, and we'll see you next time as we finish our 50 word vocabulary lesson part, by which now when we go to lesson 9 after lesson 8 is finished, we're going to start a whole new set of 50 vocabulary words. I'll see you next time.